At a secretive location, a few hundred kilometres north of Perth, there's a stockpile of what looks like ordinary sand. At first glance, it's undeserving of a second look, but it's not sand. It's actually a mountain of money, a stash of in-demand heavy metal minerals that's worth more than $1 billion. Australia has an abundance of these so-called rare earths, but until recently, we didn't care. China, though, has long known how valuable this resource is and has been buying it up and processing it to make defence weaponry. And as Nine's Christina Hearn reports, that has a lot of people very worried.
In the early morning light, this sandy moonscape isn't the setting for a Star Wars movie battle, but it is literally ground zero in the global arms race.
So what is this all worth, what we're standing in?
Well, as it sits here today, it's worth over $1 billion.
It might look like the world's most expensive sandpit, but incredibly, it's not even sand. These are tiny grains of the most powerful metals in the world. They're called rare earths, and they've turned this place into a treasure chest because they're absolutely critical in the manufacture of weapons like missiles and fighter jets.
In the US military, 3,400 weapon systems have rare earths in them. So in an F-35, there's about 400 kilograms of it.
Kim Beazley knows more than most about war and weapons. He's one of Australia's most famous former federal defence ministers and is now an advisor to US arms manufacturer Lockheed Martin. So he knows the power these tiny mineral grains hold in the world's military build-up.
When you've got 3,400 US defence systems that are reliant on rare earths, how important then are they to global security?
It's not just the US. This is not something unique about US weapon systems. Every day of the week, Russians and Ukrainians are throwing rare earths at each other.
For decades, the only country that understood the tremendous value of the metallic grains was China. Considered almost worthless by the rest of the world, the Chinese were busy building refineries to process the stuff. Soon, they had a virtual monopoly on rare earths processing. By the time everyone else had caught on, it was too late.
Why did it take the Western world so long to clue on?
Didn't have the eye on the ball. And it's not a good thing.
These days, everyone is now stuck buying fully processed rare earths for weapon making from a superpower we increasingly cannot trust. But Australia, blessed with more of the crucial minerals than almost any other country, finds itself in a unique position of sitting on an abundant resource.
Australia has twice the reserves of China. China's not omnipotent in mining. They've got a degree of desperation themselves. And irrespective of what we think about them, they're going to run out. We're not going to run out.
So, in a dramatic game of catch-up, a new battle plan has been drawn up to keep rare earths here.
One looks at that and one can be bitter about it, or one can say, smart fellas, now we're going to be smart. That's what we've got to do. We can't afford to wait because it's our survival. Our survival on multiple fronts. Our survival in defence terms. This is one of the next big things for the country.
How much do the US need us right now for their defence systems?
100%. They know that we've got what needs to be supplied, and they know we're getting in place the mechanisms for processing it.
And Australia's fight back starts here. This billion-dollar sandpit of rare earths is owned by mining company Iluka Resources.
Can I pick it up?
You certainly can. I mean, this is the mixture of the sands here. They're heavy minerals.
It is heavy. It's very heavy.
It's at least twice the weight of ordinary beach sand.
Their head of rare earths, Dan McGrath, is the gatekeeper of the only stockpile of its type in the world. But that's only because of a stroke of unbelievable luck. 30 years ago, as China was realising the value of these heavy metals, so too did one very savvy Iluka worker. The company considered it worthless, but he convinced them to keep it.
Was it worth zero?
Not zero, but it was worth very little.
And so why keep it?
Well, I think because of the range of different rare earths and the speed of technological change, that was expected that at some point in time there may be some new uses for some of those rare earth elements.
So someone back then had the foresight to go, it's worth very little, but maybe one day it's worth a lot.
That's right, and who that was, I don't know, but it was a very clever choice.
You'd like to find that guy and thank him, wouldn't you?
You'd like to buy him a beer, I think, yeah.
That one decision would turn out to be incredibly lucrative because apart from being vitally important for weapons, these metallic grains are also equally crucial in the worldwide race to be clean and green. You can't produce an electric car battery or wind turbine without rare earths.
About 30% of a permanent magnet contains rare earth elements. So the magnet is a small part of the motor and the rare earths are a minor part of the magnet. It's important because it's what makes the performance of those magnets so high.
So it's all about the magnets.
It's all about the magnets.
Kim Beazley believes Iluka's stockpile spearheads the beginning of Australia's efforts to cut off the monopoly China holds on rare earths.
You don't have to be anti-Chinese or frightened of Chinese or whatever to have only one source of supply is dumb. You don't know what's going to happen with that. You don't know whether they cut it off. You don't know how this is going to work.
The problem is no one trusts China or the games it plays. Back in 2010, as a form of retaliation, China refused to sell processed rare earth products to Japan. The punishment showed the rest of the world the dangers of letting China control the market.
It was considered a massive turning point. Governments worldwide started to take notice. That's when this went from being just a pile of sand to an incredibly lucrative asset to the country, one the rest of the world desperately wanted.
In its latest act of dominance, China has now passed powerful new laws to allow the communist government to turn the tap off whenever they want.
They said that they would not send rare earth product to anybody who was an adversary of China. So technically speaking, they've already legislated against the United States, or us for that matter, and they've just not implemented it. So they've positioned themselves to do it.
Hypothetically, if China did decide to swing the axe, what would be the repercussions?
Possibly war.
As the world falls deeper into global conflict, it's becoming an increasingly dangerous prospect that China controls the worldwide supply chain of processed rare earths, crucial ingredients in defence weaponry. Worse still, new laws passed by the Chinese Communist Party now give them the power to literally stop exporting the stuff to any opponent of China. That means the US and even Australia. Former Federal Defence Minister Kim Beazley hopes this never happens.
If China did decide to swing the axe, what would be the repercussions?
Possibly war. I don't think it'd be a very sensible thing for China to do.
Yet last month, China restricted exports of another critical mineral. Germanium is vital in the making of night vision goggles. And, like rare earths, China dominates the world market.
They've just cut that off. That's applying right now, as we speak. And I think that's a signal.
How dangerous is it if we keep China as having this stranglehold on rare earths and critical minerals?
Well, it's devastating.
So they're basically hanging the axe over us.
Well, you can look at it that way, or they can say they're incentivising us.
And Kim Beazley is right. China's hardline attitude is starting to work against them. People like Dale Webb, the CEO of Nearstar, are trying to work out other ways to get germanium. At his century-old zinc smelter in Hobart, the critical mineral can be extracted as a byproduct. It's an expensive process, but it's possible.
So here in Hobart, you could get germanium to a point, process it to a point that you can basically sell it to our defence forces and make it into those night vision goggles.
We can make the different types of products be able to be used in the building of the infrared goggles or other applications within the defence industry.
Right here is where we can separate germanium from the other minerals.
So you'd have to build more equipment right here?
Yeah, we'd have to build more tanks and filters, all things we know how to do, prove-it technology, and it's something we know the world needs.
But to make the germanium refinery a reality, Dale admits his company will need some government help. And lucky for him, there's definitely money up for grabs. Last Wednesday in Washington, Anthony Albanese announced nearly $6 billion in government loans is now on offer to help mining companies keep and process our critical minerals here.
To build a plant, to get the germanium from the zinc and process it, what are we talking about? Tens of millions, hundreds of millions?
So to do that project and the equipment that's required, it would be less than the hundreds of millions of dollars, but certainly something that would require that partnership to accelerate these types of projects going forward.
Madeleine King, the Federal Minister for Resources, will decide who gets the money. But the critical minerals and rare earths on display in her office are a clue she knows how important this is.
I think a lot of people would be surprised that China has all these processed rare earths that we can't make fighter jets without.
Well, that is why we're developing a rare earths industry here in Australia, because we need to have more availability of those processed minerals to make more of the products here and with our partners in the region, so that we are not vulnerable to others and other interests. That's exactly the purpose. We now need to compete and we need to catch up.
Aluka Resources in Western Australia has already received government help. A massive $1.25 billion to build the first rare earths processing refinery outside of Asia. But Dan McGrath says the money comes with an important condition.
Did the company go to the government and say, look, we've got this stockpile, can we get some money to actually build a refinery? Otherwise, we're going to just ship it off to China and take a quick buck?
I think it kind of happened a little more organically. It is a loan and it's paid back and with interest, and it is to build the refinery because it's about building an industry.
Is it a condition of the $1.25 billion loan that you don't sell that stockpile?
That is the most important condition of the finance facility, is that the stockpile is produced through the refinery.
It's hoped the refinery, when built, will encourage other mining companies to stop selling their precious resources to China and start processing here instead.
So at the end of 2026, Australia will finally have a place where we can get these rare earths and start to process them ourselves.
It's about building sovereign capability. It's about bringing modern manufacturing back to Australia instead of picking up material out of the ground and selling it to China.
Kim Beazley knows countries with a strong defence have a better chance of ensuring peace. And that's why he says critical minerals and rare earths are so vital for Australia's future.
Why should the Australian public care about rare earths and critical minerals?
Because we want to live. Because we want to still be here. It's our potentially biggest contribution. Because if we give the United States and the UK security of things that are essential for production, for their weapons systems, you can do no better favour for them.
So Australia's ground zero?
Well, Australia's ground zero compared to our other two partners, that is certainly the case. So it's a good position for us to be in.
Hello, I'm Amelia Adams. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for our brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.